a very interesting code and planning system that allows development to occur very quickly. I have several times recommended something, and they said, well, that's not allowed by Alabama law, right? You're not allowed to have warrants. And then somebody says, but they're doing it in Montgomery. So I think we need to graft onto Montgomery more closely. I think they do have a pretty advanced situation there in terms of coding. If you can manage a baseball stadium of the biscuits kind in Montgomery, that's great. I've also seen much more expensive ones, like in, not Columbia, what's the other place in South Carolina that just got one? Greenville. There's one in Greenville, and they're more expensive. And there's going to be one in Columbia, South Carolina, in a project we did, and they're really expensive that require subsidies. Somehow, if you had asked me earlier, we may have found, we could look for a location for a field that could be really low cost, down home, keeping it easy kind of thing. And maybe we should look, but we weren't asked to look. Do you think we should? Okay. Okay. Okay, first of all, Coors Field in Denver is a completely different thing. It's a gazillion-dollar facility and so forth. So I don't think that's the model. That's a whole really big city kind of model and not attainable. And by the way, let me just say, I think you're being very kind to Pensacola. I think this is so much better off. It's so much cooler. I spent last week in Pensacola. My last charrette, I hate to admit this, was in Pensacola. And we didn't know what to do at night. And it was the opposite here. Here we couldn't go to bed till midnight. So I would say that you should look at yourself. You're doing a much better job. And if you do want a venue for baseball, great. We'll look for a place. I know exactly what the standards are.
I have one question about, earlier in the week, last week, you were talking about the ability to capture people for 5 hours. And then earlier in this presentation, you were talking about a loop that went from Ryan Park out to the waterfront and around and back.
Right.
And yet the predominant conversation has really been on residential downtown, it seems.
Right.
Right. Where are you leaning? Destination downtown or residential downtown?
Okay. I had a wonderful evening one night, which was the Yo-Yo Ma concert. And I had an almost perfect evening in the sense that I worked, I strolled over to a wonderful party, strolled over to the concert, and then strolled over to a museum after party. It was something like 4 or 5 hours of absolute civilization. And I would have driven from Pensacola for that, right? I would have driven an hour to do that. And I think the reference this gentleman is making is that the longer you can accommodate a person, the further they'll drive to get here. If all you can offer is 5 minutes, that's 7-Eleven, you're not going to even get out of the, it has to be right on the route home. If you can offer a really good meal, they may come 5 or 10 miles. But if you can achieve that threshold of an entire afternoon, an entire Saturday afternoon, lunch, stuff at the park, drinks and dinner, or an entire evening, dinner, the concert, nice drinks after, which is 4 or 5 hours, they'll drive 40 to 50 miles. And that's called, so what you need to do is rather than have single festivals, is agglomerate experiences so that an entire Saturday morning you can allocate, between church and this and brunch and something after, they'll come for 50 miles. So what this gentleman is referring to is carefully orchestrating certain, just imagine, I don't know what they're called, but concatenation of events that draw an ever bigger, from an ever bigger radius. That's what it would be like. I am embarrassed to say I don't know how many people live within an hour. Maybe you don't want them to come. They might be Floridians, but who knows?
Hi, I just had a couple of questions about maybe some suggestions outside of the pop-up shops and the food trucks. Do you have any other suggestions for like immediate changes that we can see? I know a lot of our things for further in the future, but I currently live down here and I walk everywhere, so I'd like to see some things change hopefully in the next 2 years.
Could you speak more? Could you
Yes.
hold the mic that way? Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Did you catch any of it? I wanted to know if you had any other suggestions for immediate changes, maybe in the next 2 years, 3 years, similar to the pop-up shops and the food trucks that you suggested. I'm currently a resident and I live and walk everywhere here, so I'm trying to get other cool.
I bet you have ideas.
I have a ton. You guys would be here all night.
Okay, when people say, do you have ideas? They actually mean, I have ideas. What I'd like to do is to get together with you, or we get together with Elizabeth, and maybe we have some of those ideas. Now, did you hear Kennedy Smith a few days ago present all her ideas? Were you here for that?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed her too when you
Oh,
started
you
showing
didn't.
her
You didn't.
stuff.
Well, she had a lot of ideas of informal retail, incubator retail. But I think if you come downtown with an idea to the Downtown Alliance, I think they're ready to put you, basically to help you promote the idea. Now, of course, if the idea doesn't succeed, the retail idea or whatever it is, it has to be shut down. There can be no permanent subsidies. But I think everybody that has, this is sort of what shopping malls do. You come up to them and they give you a cart at the middle of the mall, and if you succeed, they'll give you a real store and you're called Sunglass Hut. Or, that's how it started. What's wonderful about the Downtown Alliance is that they have that attitude of incubating businesses, not bringing them in. Not just, bringing national retailers. But I'll tell you, there are some national retailers that really know what they're doing and will do the advertising to bring in the people in the inline stores of the regular merchants. And I discussed just lightly with Elizabeth today to what extent a national merchant coming in periodically, interspersed, not clustered the way they like to do it, but intersperse them and see what they can do to bring more energy down for the local merchants.
Thank you. Okay, couple of points. I think the plan is wonderful. To bring people in, to bring people that live here. I know my wife and I, we live down there close to where Elizabeth lives, and we've always thought about moving downtown, farther in town, find the right place. But one of the things that does concern me about the plan and the other city plan, we do have this long string of events we call Mardi Gras, about 2.5, 3 weeks long downtown.
Really?
And
3 weeks?
The majority of the balls end up at this round building that we propose for a Target.
Right.
There's no other building downtown, including the convention center, that's suitable for those tableau-type balls.
I see.
It's no other building that gives the theater style to
I
lift
see.
up and have music. So what I'm saying is and I know, Sam and I have had this, the mayor, we've got the oldest civic center on the Gulf Coast.
Right.
Politicians love new buildings, as you know. If we do away with the civic center in the proposal of the concept of a livable, workable downtown where we have, for 2 weeks, literally anywhere from 1,000 to 4,000 people going to an event and a ball, what do we do with those?
Well,
Do
that's
we let somebody come in and build a place that we bus them out to after the parade?
Okay, I've heard that, but what I heard more strongly is that it's losing a lot of money and it's going to be demolished. So what I'm trying